Welcome to BodyHack and Build a Better You, the podcast where we unlock the secret to living a longer, healthier life and create a bloom zone in our life and within our family. I'm your host, Michaela Morell, and I'm here to provide you with the tools and knowledge to empower you to build a better you, one essential building block at a time. In today's episode, we're diving into body hacking, our parenting skills. If you're looking to grow and improve in this area, you are at the right place. This episode is sure to inspire and empower you. Our guest, Jennifer Witten, is a passionate conscious parenting expert, Reiki master, and somatic breathwork practitioner. She will share her personal journey, the experiences that led her to help parents break free from stigmas, and even offer insights as she's reflecting on some of my own challenges as a mother. Please note that this episode contains discussions about sensitive and potential triggering topics, so keep your children's ears away. Grab a cup of tea or take a walk, and let's explore how we can body hack our way to becoming the best parents we can be. I want to remind you that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Read the disclaimer in the show notes, and I want to remind you to always consult your healthcare provider if you plan to make any dietary changes. And now, let's start the episode. Welcome to the podcast, Body Hack and Build a Better You. And today I'm sitting here with lovely Jennifer Witten. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, Witten, yes.
Perfect. I'm so excited for you to be here today. And I know that you are very, very passionate about helping parents have a better relationships with their kids. Tell us a very brief, what it is that you do.
Yes, well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I know you have a busy schedule, so thank you for squeezing me in. And yes, I'm a mom to two teenagers. My journey started when my son was 2. He was diagnosed with ADHD, or actually he was diagnosed with autism, but man, he had every label put on him for 7 years. We were in and out. But today, he's just been navigating neurodivergent child with an eating disorder. My daughter has a lot of anxiety. So they have been my biggest teachers and mirror back into what I needed to do is really work on me and my old wounds, my childhood conditioning, and really trying to reframe what it means to be, quote, a good mom. And there really is no good mom. And
Yeah,
I
was
was
going to
trying
ask you.
no, I was trying to be perfect, and I was the fixer, and I was the doer, and I just tried so hard to make Matthew fit into what society said was a good kid. And little did I know that he was really teaching me to unlearn everything that society has taught me to believe, what my own limiting beliefs taught me to be about who I am as a person, as a mom. And it just led me down this journey. I got into energy work, became a Reiki master. Then that led me into breath work, became a somatic breathwork practitioner, which then led me down to, which I've always followed, Dr. Shafali, who is conscious parenting.
Yeah.
And recently got and went through her whole certification program. And I love it because it really combines the mind and the body. And that is my passion, to help parents to really nurture their own inner parent and to learn what it means to live from our intuition versus our intellect.
Yes.
And just really be of support to their emotional well-being, because they're under so much pressure and stress today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I getting so excited now. And I think the audience now will start to understand too how interesting this episode is going to be when we're talking about body hacking. Because when I'm talking about body hacking, I want to create better circumstances for everything to work better, for our cells to work better, for our brain to work better, for how we are reacting in stressful situations. How can we upgrade our body? And today we're going to touch on parenting, because this is, I mean, I have 3 kids too. I'm very, very passionate about parenting and doing it in a on a relationship basis, like that you're meeting your kids with respect. Like there are so many people out there that are very good at being friends. They're so good at being friends and know how to communicate with um, another adult. But when it comes to kids, they're communicating in a whole different way. And it's fascinating because I was like, I want to be able to communicate with myself too. Like I want me to be my best friend. I don't want to say any downgrading things to myself either. And I don't want to do it with my kids, and I don't want to do it with my spouse. I want to be able to communicate. So I'm so excited that we have you on today because you're an expert in this field. And so that we can give the community a few tools if they feel like, oh, maybe I'm not so good at parenting, or maybe I'm not so good at meeting my child where they are. We're having a lot of head banging going on together. And like, so
Yes.
I'm so excited for doing this episode today and take the parents on a journey that might lead them to maybe some new tools, new knowledge, new insights, because a lot of the times it's just about getting an idea and getting a little bit of knowledge into our head, and it makes so much sense, but no one has said it before. So we haven't known about it, but suddenly we're like, ah, duh, it makes so much sense.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's funny you said that because what came up for me is my daughter's 13, and what I've really been teaching her is the idea of that you are your best friend. You are your biggest cheerleader. And we kind of lose that because we as parents don't really have that sense of worth about who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking about, I want to, talk to my kids the way I talk to other relationships. And this is where we get really stuck as parents because there's no other relationship unlike a parent child that we can't leave, we can't change it, we can't divorce it, we can't quit it. And there's also a sense of deep attachment, that this is the sense of ownership. So when
Mm-hmm.
we own something, and if this thing isn't producing what the world says is well behaved and achieved and good, then it reflects, we think it is a reflection of our own worthiness. And so part of this work is detaching from this sense of ownership, that this is my child, but rather this is their own sovereign being. This is a soul that came through you. You don't own it. And they are
Mm-hmm.
here to be led on their own journey. And we as parents are only to be ushers and not demanders and, dictators of what their soul is calling. But that gets really confusing because it's not what the world teaches us that what a parent's job is, especially when they're young, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like there's so many sources out there that is just pushing us in a direction too. That I mean, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, it was Super Nanny on the TV show, and she would always like, oh, your kid is not behaving, time out if they're not behaving, longer time out if they're not behaving, then even longer time out. And I'm like, that never resonated with me because
Yeah.
the kids are not acting the way they're doing because they need a timeout. It's something more fundamentally like things that are going on within their body. And if we're just teaching the kid that not behaving and expressing their feelings equals timeout, it's we're just gonna end up with kids that are afraid of expressing feelings. And if they're afraid of expressing feelings, they're gonna have a lot of emotions backed up, which will cause them eventually later on health issues and will cause them
Mhm.
trauma and will cause them to struggle in adulthood life with relationships, with all different kinds of things because they are not feeling safe expressing their emotions. So anyway, there are so many factors out there and they want you to
Mhm.
behave. And I'm terrified sometimes when I'm walking in stores and people are trying to be nice, but their words can be so harmful. For example,
Mhm.
I just remember this little thing. I wanted to share it, but I was out in the grocery store with my kid, and my firstborn, he had amazing body control, and he was a climber. He would always climb. So I understand, like, especially coming to the States, I know it's the culture of like, if someone hurt them, you sue them. And I don't come from that. Like, you're responsible for your own action in Scandinavia. If you get hurt, it's on you. Like, you have to have an insurance for you. There's no one else having insurance for you, you know? But anyway, so I'm just walking in the grocery store, and my little happy guy, he's climbing on the cart. And I am not worried at all because I know that he can handle it. And I don't put boundaries. Like I allow him to utilize it because for me, I see his talent. I see his talent of being able to use his body that way. But then the lady's like, oh, ma'am, you cannot let him climb like that. It's dangerous. And I just saw this little guy that was so full of life crawl inside of himself, thinking that he had done the worst thing possible. And he got so afraid. And I could see how damaging that sentence was. And of course, I know that she was just probably scared. She doesn't know my kid. But I just want to make people aware out there that words can suppress a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings. So I'm super excited for the conversation.
Yes. Well, that was my son. He was identified as the troublemaker, the one that was the disruptor. And the parent that I was back then was parenting from a place of a lot of fear of judgment, a lot of helplessness because I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand Matthew and what he was communicating and all of the way that he moved his body and couldn't sit still and was very impulsive and aggressive. And all I saw was that, when kids typically just, misbehave, the first thing people think of is, where's this kid's mom? And I felt a huge burden that the judgment was on me, that I was somehow a bad mom and somehow I'm promoting this quote bad behavior. And it took a lot of my own inner work
Mm.
to reframe what I was witnessing from Matthew. Matthew was only um, really reacting to my own anxiety, my own helicoptering of, will you please just fit in? Because I don't want the world to judge me. I judge myself. I don't want them to judge you. And so I had to really look at myself and what was coming up for me, understanding what was triggering, what was going on inside me that made me want to pounce and suppress Matthew. And that took a lot of work and a lot of healing, but that was the beginning of a big shift for me. And when I started to really change the way that I was looking at myself, I came with a whole new energy. And Matthew started to shift and change. I had a lot of therapists and teachers and parents wanting to know, what are you doing? Thinking I had some amazing parenting strategy, right? Some amazing discipline, consequence.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, because we're all thinking that's what it's about. It's not about my work is to teach. It's not about the child.
Yeah.
It is the child is only holding up a mirror and saying, Mom, this is your work. This is all your unhealed wounds about yourself. And so when
Mhm.
I shifted, he shifted. And that's really what I like to work with parents on. It's definitely a perception shift.
I want everyone to just take a moment now and take this in. It's a shift that we have to make. We have to understand that, of course, like you shouldn't feel judged, but at the same time, we have to look inside and see what can we do? What kind of change can we do within us that will reflect positive on our children?
Yeah. It's so hard to do. It is so hard to do. A lot of my work is talking about somatic work, and I like to think of it as, or, somatic and energy, the body living from an intuition versus an intellect mind. And if we think of ourselves as a radio station, we are emitting a radio station to our children. It is the way that we unconsciously, non-verbally think about ourselves, the way we
Yeah.
react in situations, how we carry ourselves through life. And I heard this quote from Ed Milet. He's this amazing coach speaker. And he said something that is so profound. He was like, we teach children, what we teach children is caught, not taught. They are
Yeah.
catching their worthiness. They are catching their beliefs about who they are. They are catching how they feel about themselves, not from something that we're verbally saying to them, more from this embodied living. And when we start really tuning into what kind of a radio station are we emitting, this is the work that we start to do that's all internal, but it makes a
Mm.
profound shift in our children's life and our relationships and our reality, the way we feel, the physical symptoms start to decrease. The world opens up when we kind of start to really change the lens to what's going on in me and what little children, little parts in me need to be parented first before I can really parent the child before me.
Yeah. This is so powerful. And my mind starts spinning right away, of course, towards like, of course, everyone have heard a happy wife. I mean, a happy wife, a happy
Right.
life, but it's also a happy mom, a happy child, I would say. That
Yes.
so many women think that we are doing the family a service of always putting everyone else first. And we are taught and trained to how can I help you? How can I help you? But it's very few people, I feel like, they's actually starting to reflect what can I do for me today? And raising our own energy to a more positive, to a more healthier and happier energy, that is so significant for us to project that happiness to our children, and also teach our kids how to be happy. That is something that people have been losing. Everyone is looking at performance, but very few knows how to be happy. And then, of course, me as a nutritionist, I'm like, we have to go into the food aspect of it all. So you as a mom can't expect your kids to eat healthy unless you eat healthy, and you can't feel good and energy, like have energy, if you're not getting all the essential building blocks.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah, I really wish we could redefine the word selfish and disattach this from this mom sentence, like a selfless mom is a good mom. What are we teaching us? We are only one human being attending to many human beings, and we are the most important person in our children's life. So if we're not taking care of that one person that is the most important person in our child's life, what kind of parent is showing up? And
Mhm.
we have to start to also tell ourselves that we are the most important relationship we will ever have in our life. Nobody lives inside of us. Nobody lives inside our body. Nobody lives inside our mom. I'm sorry, our mom. Nobody lives inside our mind. And nobody is suffering and creating our own suffering like our own inner critic, our own guilt, our own regrets. We have
Mhm.
to learn how to feel home within ourselves. And when you really exude that, man, you are teaching something that is without words. It's so much more powerful than words, something we could probably never express in words. Children just are just a sponge to the way we have embodied ourself, our own self-acceptance, forgiveness, love. Really, it's this inner parent that I'm so passionate about helping parents to really learn how to cultivate this inside, because this is an inside job, and it's so liberating and freeing when we can really come from this space, and so much less pressure. It's so hard to control and change another person. We've tried. We've all been moms. We've all tried to. This is why we're all seeking the next discipline, the next book. Tell me, tell me, tell me, how do I get my child to sit down? And you can't. It's the
No.
hardest thing to accept in life, that you cannot change another person, but you have the power to change yourself. That indirectly is going to be the best support you can do for your child.
Yes. So true. So I would like to then go into like, okay, if there is a new mom coming to you and she's struggling, she's having issues with communicating with her child, she does not understand, she tend to have the sentence, you do it because I say so mentality in every sentence that she's giving the child when she's trying to make the child do something. What would it look like? Where would you start to like help that woman to like, okay, let's create better circumstances. So what can she do right away to try to rewire her brain to just work a little bit in favor for having a healthier relationship?
Yeah, it is not an easy one answer. It is definitely a couple sessions,
I
because
bet.
we are really, yeah, because first, it's really important that anybody who comes and works with me first is there is a sense of safety, that your thoughts and your feelings are valid and true. Whatever you are experiencing is true. And I think
Mhm.
it's really important for parents and particularly moms. I had a lot of terrible thoughts about my son in the early years. It was so incredibly hard. I felt anger, I felt resentment. I felt things that I thought I shouldn't be feeling about my son. But the moment that I got validated and just was able to express, because it's not really about him, it was more about me. But this is part of we need to kind of be able to vent and feel like I'm heard, seen, and validate. That's the most important thing from there. Then we start to, yeah,
Can I say something? That is the most
yeah,
important thing for everyone. It's the most important
yes.
for our children too, but for ourselves. So keep on going.
Yes, exactly. I mean, in the end, we all want to be seen, heard, and validated. It's what we've been seeking our entire life. So when you can get that from another person, most likely your guards will drop and you will open into a space of softness, curiosity, compassion. And this is what I'm teaching you to do for yourself. But when you witness it with somebody else first, you start to see, oh, and you then the next step is really getting in and understanding what is making me so triggered. Why
Yeah.
is this really making me upset? My daughter slammed the door and said, I hate you. These teenagers can be very triggering,
Very triggering.
very triggering. But when we don't stop and say, why is this really upsetting me? That's the first step. And I can give you an example. My daughter is very vocal, has been. She is a very expressive teenage girl, like many of them, I can imagine. But, triggers don't exist on the outside. A trigger is in the inside. If we think of a trigger as a little burning fire pit, it has already existed. It is an unwound, healed part in us. And when something on the outside happens, he said this, she said that, it's like throwing gasoline on a fire. So a trigger is an inside job. A trigger does not exist on the outside because one thing will not affect two people the same way. So my husband would get really upset when Kate would get really upset. Her big emotions would just set him off. He felt disrespected. He lost all connection with her. He was angry at her. Well, when he started to go and do his own work because he was really struggling to connect with his daughter, he knew this was becoming a problem. What he found out was, his older sister was 4 years older, and growing up, she dominated the house with a lot of big emotions.
Mm.
Mike, my husband, learned very early that he needed to suppress, he needed to be quiet, he needed to not make any more arguments, and that when his daughter then started to make these big emotions, it was more like his little inner child, this unhealed little fire pit, was like, why do you get to express yourself? Why do you get to yell and scream? I don't. Suck it up. You need to just move on with life. But so
Yeah.
when he realized, oh, this is about me, and what I haven't dealt with yet, and coming to terms with little Mike, who needed to learn how to vocalize and express, ask for their needs, get their needs met, he was able to bridge that to his daughter and be able to start to see next time she got super emotional, he could tap back in and say, oh, I see you. I have that part too. And it's okay. So tell me what you're thinking. More from a place of curiosity versus disrespect, discipline, and anger. That's
Yeah.
just an example of how when you start to understand, why does this make me so upset? We have our whole possibilities open up to how we're viewing a relationship or a situation with our child.
I have to ask you a question then from a wife perspective. How did that make you feel seeing your husband come to that understanding, starting to meet your daughter in an area where she could feel safe and heard and validated, and the relationship they started creating from that? How did that make you feel as a mom?
Oh, amazing, right? Because I started to see this, I started to see them get separated, separated, separated. And like I have already learned, I can't change Mike. Mike
Yeah.
had to come to this conclusion himself. Part of doing this work from this lens of this way of living is to understand that we cannot escape people's pain. We have to allow people to get to a place that is painful enough that they are willing to change, because nobody is going to make you change unless you are pushed to that limit of pain yourself, and to not be uncomfortable with pain. It was a messy situation for a long time. I had to keep working on my inner Jennifer. I had to keep,
Yeah.
keeping perspective that this is Kate, this is Mike, this is their relationship. And it was only then when Mike got to a place that it was important to him and getting painful enough for him that he wanted to make a change. He realized that I am kind of the adult here. What am I teaching my daughter? I don't want her to have issues with men later in life. And it was beautiful. And it's amazing to witness other people lean into their pain, because also a big proponent of pain. That's another big messaging that I do. It's,
Yes.
when we lean into pain, it is a portal for so much on the other side, but we're just taught to suppress it, be scared of it, don't feel it. And that only, as you probably know, festers in the body and creates so much dysregulation and disease.
Yes. And thank you for saying this out loud. Pain is not something we have to fear, it's something we learn from and can grow from.
Yes.
And
Yes. One of the
it
best
shouldn't
teachers is
be,
pain.
yeah, it shouldn't be like suppressed. It should be, we should almost thank our pain for being there so that we can learn from it. And then we can heal from it. And then we can come out stronger on the other side. Because people are
Yeah.
trying to avoid pain, they're just getting stuck where they are at. And they are very, like, they're usually stopping up their development in life.
Right.
So,
And think about the we're not creating any resilience, any empowerment, any inner resources to deal with life. The reality of life is it's going to be hard. It's going to be spontaneous, unpredictable. There are going to be painful moments, but a pain is like a wave. It only rides for so long. And you do get to the other side, but you have to be willing to like take your surfboard and just get into the wave because there is so much magic on the other side. And when we teach our kids this, they are building, it's really empowering to know that I can handle anything that life gives me. Instead
yeah.
of being, I'm so scared that I don't know what to do, I feel broken inside, and I'm just going to keep playing small and hiding from the painful parts of life.
Hmm.
That will wear on you and build a huge toll on your mental and emotional and physical body.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. And then I just want to circle back to what you said about, like, guys, there are so many people out there that are struggling with the relationships to themselves, with the relationship to their spouse, with the relationship to their kids. And they're getting trapped in this circle where they're not seeing how the relationship can become better. And for me, like, when I see my children want to become better and putting in the work to become better, my husband, like, that is the most attractive and most, like, it creates so many loving emotions in my body when I see that. And I get so proud. But we have to understand that a lot of people out there might end up in a blame mode where they're
Yeah,
blaming their husband for having a bad relationship versus making sure that you're raising your own energy, that you're working on yourself, and rather showcase a healthy relationship, because there are so many people out there that haven't seen a healthy relationship. They grew up not seeing healthy relationships between their parents, between their their relationship with their parents, and so on. And a lot of people are growing up with trauma. And sometimes I believe that no matter how perfect you are, your child will have trauma anyway, because it's just a part of life. But
absolutely.
but it's about doing your best to understand where we can meet people. Let's talk a little bit about meeting people from an emotional perspective, because I want to touch a little bit on the love languages too that kids are having, and just kind of throw it out there, because I think there are parents that might be like, I don't understand it. Like me, for example, I grew up in a family of 8 children. When I grew up, my parents was all about it needs to be fair. Everyone needs to be treated the same way. It needs to be equal amounts of milk in the glass. Everyone had the same amount. Like, it was always
Wow.
equal every single day. And growing up myself and having my own kids, I very quickly understood that I cannot treat my kids the same way. They have different needs, they have different love languages, they're responding differently. I can say something in one way to one kid, and I say exactly the same thing to the other kid, and they are responding very negatively, like I just offended them. I'm like, how? So myself, I went on to this journey when my oldest son was 2 years of age. I tried to put him into daycare just a few hours a week. And my kid was also very hyperactive growing up. Like, he was he was one of those crazy kids. I would walk into a store with him. I would see him when I walked in. I would see him when I walked out. In between, I would not see him. And I would also have to make an extra round in the store to make sure that all freezers and refrigerators were on, because he would find all buttons and turn them off. And I did not want the store to have ruined food.
I know
He
that all too well.
Yeah, and then like if I try to contain him to the cart, he would like jump out as soon as I just looked like which one should I pick? He was already out. He had already taken off. And if I tried to put him back, he
Yep.
would scream. He would scream in the store like, "Mom, mom, don't hit me. Don't hit me." I'm like, "I'm not hitting you. What are you talking about? I have never laid my hand on you." And like, where does this language come from? But it became embarrassing because in Scandinavia, like if anyone believes they're hitting your child, you can lose their child. They're very, very strict of
Right.
like, which is good, but it's also problematic when the kids start having that verbiage. I'm like, what?
Yes.
Anyway, but I put him into daycare, and it was a very good daycare. It was only 20 kids and 5 adults. They cooked together. They was outside walking. It was basically an outdoor daycare that they went in and had lunch. Like it was super nice. But I saw my child that was this super happy, content, very energetic, but very responsive. Child turned into something and someone that he had such a big
Mhm.
personality change and it was scary and he got very aggravated, very frustrated, it was so hard being a parent and it would take at least 40 minutes to just get him dressed and then he would strip down naked if you turned around and then you would have to spend another 40 minutes to get him dressed and trying to play and trying to use reverse psychology and it was
Yeah.
just like never ending work with him. I felt like there was never an easy day,
Exhausting.
so
Mhm.
exhausting. And both me and my husband just looked at each other and was like, there is no money in the world that is worth this. Like, my business
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything if my kid cannot have a good life.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the start to be like, okay, he does not fit the mold. I cannot I cannot fit the mold because he cannot fit the mold. And I need to do changes in my life to create better circumstances for him being happy and content growing up. So I actually closed down my business I had. I brought him with me, brought him home, and I kept him home for an extra 2.5 years. And it took me
Yeah.
almost a full year to repair the damage attachment wise and the trust we had built prior. It took a year to repair the damage that was done in 3 months. And he was not
Yeah.
many hours at daycare. He was only 15 hours a week at daycare. And it was an amazing daycare. He had fun when he was there, but he started
Yeah.
shutting me out of his life. I wasn't allowed. I wasn't a part of it.
Mhm.
It was always a fight. And as a mom and
So
your
hard.
firstborn, it's so hard to like try to you feel like you're the most loved person. Suddenly you feel like your kid is hating you every single day.
Right.
And
Yeah.
just start to like reflect, what is it that is causing this? And it was not
Mhm.
until a few years later I truly understood it. Because when he was 4.5 years, I put him into, we had moved from Norway to United States to Texas. And I did not want him to start kindergarten full time with the English language when he only knew Norwegian. So to ease him into the
Yeah.
language, I put him into uh, pre-K 3 days a week.
Mhm.
And and he had turned into this happy, good kid again, like the kid I enjoyed being around. And then suddenly, starting there, he started coming back home. He had really like, yeah. If you're having
Yeah.
kids listening to this podcast, please pause it right now because I'm going to share what he said. And it can be, you don't want your kids to hear this. But
Mhm.
he would come back home from school and he would be really mad and furious, screaming at me, saying that you don't love me. No one cares about me. I will go to the kitchen, I'll grab a knife and I'll put it in my heart and I'll kill myself because no one cares. And I was
Oh,
just like, where does these
where's this
words
coming
come
from?
from? He was my
Yeah.
firstborn. I monetized everything he saw. I was always on his play dates. The only time I did not monetize him was when he was at school, but he was going to a small Christian school. It was only 15 people in his class. I felt like I did not understand where he could possibly learn this verbiage. And first, I got very reactive. I got very mad and be like, you don't ever say stuff like that. That is not something we play around with. And I was like trying to put
Yeah.
down my, like, we don't talk like that. but it would
Yeah,
come
the
up.
anger comes from fear.
Yeah, the anger comes from fear, and it kept on coming up. And he
Mhm.
would keep on expressing stuff like that, and I did not understand it. But luckily, I understood that the words are not what he means, it's emotions behind the words. So I
Yes.
started searching for psychology books, and I found Jesper Juhl. He's a psychologist from Denmark that is helping a lot of families. I found books and I started reading the five love languages, and suddenly everything started falling into place. Suddenly, I understood that my little child, his love language is time together. And every time I
Mhm.
leave him, he feels like I'm hating him.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that was
He
so,
was having that disattachment. Mhm.
and that's why I destroyed the attachment that was so strong so quickly when he was 2 years old, because a child that is that young, a lot of things are happening very quickly in their brain, and
Yeah.
rewiring happens very quickly.
Right.
And and then when he was 4.5, like for example, my kid, he had been diaper free since he was a year and a half, both daytime
Mhm.
and nighttime. He was super quick at learning everything, and he had never had an accident ever. And at 4.5, when I came and picked him up at school, every day he started peeing himself 5, 10 minutes before I got there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just such an interesting body response to what he was feeling in his body was just a lot of dysregulation. And so the
Yeah.
body was very dysregulated. Thank you for sharing all that because I think one of the hardest things that we do as mothers is we don't forgive ourselves. We don't know what is going to quote traumatize another person, mostly our children. No mom ever wakes up and makes decisions deliberately saying that, oh, I want to traumatize, I'm going to do this, this is going to make my child upset. We don't know. And we do our best with the information that we have, where we are in our own life. And what you're speaking to, what is the verbiage I like to speak to, is this idea of attunement. And when we attune to the nuances, the nonverbal nuances of what's going on in our child and get very attuned to it, we start to see exactly what you saw is we see a behavior and the emotion like a volcano. Volcanoes, we see the eruption, but we
Yeah.
don't see the lava getting hotter and brewing and getting closer. We don't see any of that. And so we're so quick to either get like you or you're angry, like don't ever say you would ever hurt yourself, but it's coming from a place of deep fear, of helplessness, of like anxiety of the future. What's going to become? What did I do? Like all these things start to come. And we're so quick to then fix it, control it, strategize it. But when we think of it as a volcano, we can say, okay, we've had this big behavior, this big emotion. Okay, things are exploding. But when we are centered in ourselves and we've really cultivated this inner wise self, we start to think, okay, what's the unmet emotional need going on just below this behavior? And that's what you were attuning to and starting to really make decisions around, which is really hard and scary to do because you're in the chaos, you're in the eruption, and you're trying to get nuance to something that they can't even verbalize. And so this is when we get back to learning how to parent from an intuitive place versus an intellect place. Our
Yeah.
intellection is only going to make us think of fear and anxiety. But when
Mm.
we lead from our body led parenting, we're kind of coming in from a more intuitive, this like, what is really going on here with sense of curiosity, like a detective. And you started to make decisions based off of that. And like you said, you started to have your child come back, the child that you enjoyed, when you
Yeah.
started to understand, oh, he just needed to be with me. For him, separation was a huge trauma response in his body. And we
Mm.
don't know what is going to, like you said, one thing is not going to affect the other person. A child could be, left from baseball practice. Dad didn't pick him up for like an hour. He's going to live with abandonment issues the rest of his life. Another kid would have been like, this is awesome. I had free time from my dad. We just don't know. And so the art of self-forgiveness is such a big thing that I really love to work with parents on because it has been my own journey. I have a lot of regrets of the way I parented, most particularly my son. I was the raging bully in the house because I was so helpless, so fearful. I had doctors telling me all these things were going to be true about his future. And I was just in a place of like so much fear that I was just angry and trying to control everything. And I have visions of looking back and seeing myself and probably imagine what my face looked like to this little boy. And it takes a lot of courage to have a lot of grace and compassion for past mistakes because we are not meant to be perfect. But it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It's
Mm.
very hard. And I'm just so happy. And I want to like just share the result because after I found out the love languages, after I found out that this is just a response, I actually was able to take my 4.5-year-old son, sit down with him on the couch and talk with him and ask him, I understand that you're saying these words, but do you think that these words are truly what you're meaning? Or are you just expressing that you're hurt, that you're
Mm.
sad? And we were able to come
Right.
into the conclusion that it's an expression of him being sad or angry and mad. And then we went deeper. Do you think you're angry and sad because of you're hungry or because you're wanting more cuddle time? Or is it because something have happened at school? And we found out that it's most likely because he wants more cuddle time. So he and we said that, okay, we're going to make a pact because what had been happening prior is that I would go and pick him up from school, I would come back home, and I would talk with him the whole way back home. I would talk with him, but I would start doing dishes and or cook food and cutting veggies and start feeding him a snack and so on. And I felt I was present in his life. I felt I was there for him,
Yeah.
but
Right.
he saw me doing chores and he
Yeah.
was just on the side.
Yeah.
So I was able
He
to
saw you
tell
in the doing. Yeah, he saw you in the doing
exactly.
of life. He's like, just be with me,
Yeah.
mom.
And for me, my love language is act of service. So when I see my mom do stuff, cook things, and so on, I feel loved. I can just sit there, and if someone is taking care of me and doing short like things for me, like I feel loved. But that was not
Yes.
his love language. And this is something I want
Right.
to like there is no like just because I'm telling my story right now, this is not the right thing for you to do with your child. You have to figure that out. But I just want to give
Mhm.
you a couple of ideas of where to start looking if you're struggling. And we made a pact that every day when we got back home from school, I would not use the phone, no TV, no kitchen, nothing. I would just sit down with him on the couch and I would hug him for as long as he needed.
Yes.
And
That
and
is
I,
amazing.
And I remember the first day we were sitting on the couch, and this is my hyperactive kid. This is the kid that cannot sit and watch TV for 2, 3 minutes before he's jumping and running around. He came and sat in
Right.
my lap, and he was sitting still for 40 minutes, just
Wow.
embracing the
Wow.
hug, the love, the connection. And
Yeah.
we hardly
He
didn't
was
talk. We just started
right.
filling up that cup that was so empty of love in his mind.
Yeah, that's that energetic somatic body love. He's just sitting there getting his like charging like a phone. He's charging his emotional cup. He's charging his regulation back into his body. And he needed 40 minutes for maybe the last year for him. Who knows? But kids are so brilliant at listening to their bodies. They're so brilliant at how to be in the present moment and just be here in what this moment has for me. They know how to really listen to all this nuanced stuff. It's we as parents get detached from it through all the
Mm,
doing and the achieving and becoming an adult and all the pressures and labels and identities. Kids are just here, mammals, living, primal, in that
yeah.
sense, that felt sense. And when we can tap into that, we learned so much from our kids on how to be in the present moment, tapping into this emotional well. When we tap into that, this is what we all actually seek. We're all seeking this. Can you just sit with me? Can you just hear me? And what am I saying? Is it important? They just want to be seen, heard, and validated. And so brilliant that you did that. And that's really, and you said something that I think is, as far as giving a tool on when parents are like, well, I don't know how to do this. It's continually to ask the question and say, because he was feeling dysregulated because I don't know, was that because of I was sad or I needed, like you said, food? What do you think? Because, well, I don't know. You just have to keep asking either because or keep asking why. And you keep getting layered down till you get to this core thing of what you got to with him was like, I just want to cuddle with you. Oh,
Yeah.
I can do that. But if we just keep asking the question, we will get an answer. And that's just a starting point. Just start there. See where that new answer takes you.
And I just wanted to also share with you guys that it's not that easy always to understand what the child needs, because this is my hyperactive kid. He was never able to cuddle during daytime because he was always staying so busy. He did not really
Yeah.
seek cuddles from me naturally during daytime because he was so busy climbing, building things and exploring the world. So it was not my first thought that he needs more cuddle because he had never searched for it. But he was co sleeping with us. So he was filling up his cup during the night by co sleeping. He also nursed for a long time. So getting that affection and being with us and feeling the body during the whole night and just having that connection, that used to be enough for him in the setting when he was with me all day long. But when he came into a setting where he was gone from me, he needed more because the what he had been recharging with during nighttime was gone before he came back home from school, and he needed to recharge again to be able to stay happy until he went to bed in the night. So it's not
Right.
always obvious to understand what the kids needs, but it's all going down to the foundations of, and that's why I love the book of like five love languages, because that one is giving us tool to like start seeing and start recognizing maybe my child is
Yeah.
that, and try out a couple of things. Try to see like, are my body, I mean, my youngest daughter, if I give her a gift, she's happy as like
Yes.
he's a sunshine. And she doesn't need me at all. I can be gone for a whole week. I can give her one gift and she is so happy and content, and that is it. So
Yeah. You do. That's the nuances to the way they are responding to something that happens. And when you get really attuned to these little, moments in time that your child reacts a certain way is a glimpse into their internal world, what motivates them, what brings them, connection. For my son, movement was the way he regulated. He needed to move his body to feel more grounded, to feel more calm. You think it's the opposite, but he needed movement. So going to school was so dysregulating. And there's a disservice to children then who get disciplined, they take away recess. It only compounds the issue. And so it's like it's learning what regulates my child, what makes them feel peaceful, grounded, seen, validated. It may be they need to go crazy. We used to tell Matthew, just go run 2 blocks and come back because it was just like, there's no way we can talk to you right now. Your body needs to calm down. To calm down meant go run, go
yeah.
move, go get that energy surge through your body so you can come back and be like, okay, what were you saying, mom? Or I need to do a chore. So you learn these things about your children, but and this is why I think the work that I enjoy doing so much, because it's really taking the lens off the child. It's so hard to know what anybody else is feeling if we don't even know what we're feeling. If we don't even know what our true emotions are and our real thoughts are, or what do I believe to be true about me? When we can do this for ourselves first, it's so much easier to see that clear line to another person and maybe have a glimpse into their internal world. So it's almost freeing when we can take the lens off the child because it's so hard to know what somebody else is feeling, thinking, what their desires are if they don't know how to communicate. But we can do that for ourselves. We can learn how to attune to us. And then it's so much easier to do for another person.
So much easier. And also, what I wanted to also share was that the result of helping a child eventually be able to become smart with emotions. Because something I
Mhm.
saw also was, and something that my oldest one now, he's 12 today, and everyone is always being so impressed by his way of being able to be so mature in his emotions now. Something that he would most
Mhm.
likely not have been unless we were very, like, we focused a lot on emotions. And
Yeah.
seeing a child that is 4.5 years old going through the hurdles of not being able to control himself, explode, being aggressive, to understand that he have a need, and when the need is not met, he have those reaction, and then be able to regulate that even before the reaction comes. And then he was able eventually to, like, he did not need 40 minutes all the time. Like, it went down to 2 minutes and he could go and play. But sometimes he would have left me too early because he thought he was done. And then suddenly something would happen. And he, like, it could be 2 hours later and he could feel that he was about to explode. And he could come to me and say, Mom, I need more time. I need more cuddles and love.
Mhm.
And
Amazing. You
creating
should
a
be so yeah.
I was so
I mean,
proud. I was like crying the first time that happened, but I was so proud
yes.
because I've been able to help him recognize what the problem was and what he needed. But we're so many adults that have been growing up in a phase where we weren't allowed to feel, we weren't allowed to ask, what do we need?
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to know that that is something our kids need.
Yes. Well, that is amazing. He is so lucky to have you as a mom. The work that you're doing for him, it's changing his quality of life. I heard someone say that the quality of your emotions is the quality of your life. If you're living in this emotional home that's full of anger and resentment and hate and anxiety, that's the quality of our life. Our emotions are energy and
Mm,
we are exuding something. And so for you to teach very young, for him to get tapped in to his own energetic home and to know when it's off and what he needs, I mean, that's really what life is all about, learning how to uh, ask for our needs, even know what our needs are in the first place, and to know that we're even worthy of having needs. So many of us,
yes.
yet, as you said, we're disconnected from our body. I was very dissociated from my body growing up. I have very small memories of my childhood, and I've learned through my work is that it wasn't safe to be in my body. And for a lot of people, it's not safe. It's not safe to be in my
Mm,
body. Maybe there's some abuse there. It's not safe to feel my feelings because most of us were taught by unconscious generations who said you're just to be seen, not heard kind of child.
yeah.
And so a lot of the work I like to do with parents is it is a slow integration. It is a slow trusting yourself. It's a slow trusting to have space in your body to even come inside where it might feel safe.
Mm,
And it takes time and a lot of just grace, again, grace and forgiveness and trying to cut the cord of maybe what happened to you and the blame and maybe the parents that you had and what happened to you when you're little. At some point, we have to cut that cord and start to feel empowered. But today, I can choose something different. And you're worthy of that. You can. You can change everything that has maybe happened to you because you have the power to do it right here, right now, especially with support. And there's a lot of support out there now. And that's what I want to be as a support for these parents, especially these moms. My heart's with the moms just because, this is something I wished I had. I wish I had. I
yeah.
felt like I was on an island. Many of us really just feel like we're doing this parenting thing alone.
Yeah.
So,
No, I I'm so happy that you're here and that people can find that support. And
yes.
I want people out there to understand that as we're working on ourselves, there is so much support to get there out there. And a lot of people, it have been taboo to search for support, search for help. Like, if it's anything I know, it's like everyone needs a therapist. And
Yes.
everyone needs a coach and everyone needs someone that can bring an outside view and give you new ideas and help you rewiring your brain and your thoughts and your responses. And if you want to become better, of course. But
Right.
we have
Right.
all the knowledge today. We have all the books. We have all the amazing, beautiful people that are out there that have been in your shoes, that are preaching by doing, and can understand where you come from.
Right.
And they're here wanting to help you feel the best you can become. And yeah, it's so beautiful.
Absolutely. Exactly. I mean, I say, like, if our cars need a tune up every 100 miles, we as humans need a tune up every,
Yeah.
year or so.
Our
So
hardware
yes,
is not even that hard. Like it's changing out constantly, more often than the car is changing out their parts. We're changing out our parts the whole time. So we need tune-ups all the time.
that's very true. Yes, but it is, unfortunately, it is getting rid of the stigma and just the fear. Again, that is, the whole lesson of pain. A lot of people, because I have a lot of people in my life who are scared, and a lot of people who originally didn't want to come and do a breathwork session because they were too scared, because they could feel, they're like, Jennifer, there's so much in there. I'm scared to do it. And we just have a lot of fear of maybe what we're going to find inside. And if I could just tell people that, yes, it may seem really fearful, but the continuing to live this way is a lot harder than just
Yeah.
catching one wave of pain, ride it, because it does come down on the other side. I mean, but I get it. It's hard to want to walk through it, but there is support. And there's people out there who've walked in your shoes before and can be a light to show you a different way. And that's really my love. Is I was that mom. I did all things that I still need to forgive myself. I had the child that the world said was bad, and I thought I was a really bad mom. And I had chronic migraines. I had chronic pain. Pain has been my journey. And so there was a lot of forgiveness. There was a lot of unworthiness. There was a lot of fear of judgment, not being good enough. There was a lot of weight gain. There was a lot of pain, chronic pain. My body was just couldn't hold on to all the regrets that I had. But it's been over a decade of working through this. And I'm so passionate to be of service to other moms who might be in that right now. There's a way out of the darkness for sure.
And guys, if you're listening to this from a podcast on your podcast and not seeing the YouTube video, I just wanted to paint a picture. Jennifer, she's a beautiful woman sitting here and she's radiant. And it's just, she is a perfect example of someone that have been feeling and been hitting rock bottom and then been working on herself, coming to a place and changing her energy levels, and now is ready to serve the community out there that needs her. And I just use her as an inspiration. If you're out there not feeling your best, use her as an inspiration of you can change the way you're feeling and how your family dynamic is, and choose to become the best version of yourself. So anyway,
Yes.
I just want to paint that up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel the butterflies and the emotion myself, because yes, I deeply resonate with the pain that parents are in today. And I know there's another way to be. So
Yeah.
I hope they find me when they need me.
Yes, Jennifer, thank you so much. And guys, if you haven't tried a breathwork session, I just want to throw it out there. Breathwork, like it can sound, if you haven't tried it before, it can sound like what would that help? But seriously, when you have tried a real breathwork session, you will understand how much healing and how you just end up on another energy level after you're done. It's so worth it. Everyone needs to try it.
Yes.
It's something that people are not familiar with, but it's something
Nice.
that is so powerful. And I haven't seen any single person that haven't had a positive experience with breath work, even if it can be uncomfortable while you're doing it, because you can release a lot of emotions. You're like,
Yes. And
but
physically uncomfortable. We're not used to taking in so much oxygen at a time, but
yes,
it it's a form of a high that is so organic and healthy and enlightening and clearing out the baggage, you do feel a different way afterwards. And I take people through even just 5 minutes of breath work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just learning how to titrate in and out of your body is just the beginning of it all. And even that can be really profound.
Yes. Well,
Mm.
Jennifer, I'm so happy that you came on. If there is like one thing, I mean, we have already touched on the forgiving yourself, but I think that is like something that people might need to hear again. Leave them with the
It's just
last thing you want to.
yes, that, you are good enough and you have all the answers that you seek inside. And you are only one person trying your very best, and your best is good enough. Your children do not want you to be perfect. Your children want you to be present with them. Do you love me? Do you care for me? Do you see me? And when you do that for yourself, you can do that with your children. And learning to just be less perfect and more present is a game changer for your life.
Perfect. Those words were exactly what I needed to hear today.
Oh, good.
I love
Oh, what?
it. Thank you, Jennifer, for coming on to our podcast. I will let everyone know in the show notes where they can find you. Do you have something you want to share first? Like, where can people find you? And I'll
Yeah, the
show.
easiest to find me is to go to my website. It's just my name, Jennifer Witten. There's no H in the Witten, but you'll find my podcast, How to Work with Me. I have free resources on there for parents, and of course on Instagram, it's just Jennifer Witten _ So
Perfect. And I'll link those in the show notes for people that needs to
okay,
find it. But thank you so much, Jennifer, for
thank
being
you.
here.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thank you. This was so much fun.
You have a good day. Thank you. Bye. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to do one thing for me. Think of one person you want to share this podcast with and copy the link and send it right away. Thanks for playing an important role in the Blue Zone community. And if you want to keep on building a better you, one essential building block at a time, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next episode.